Tensions are escalating between the Biden administration and Texas Governor Greg Abbott over COVID vaccine mandates. The Republican leader signed an executive order banning private businesses from enforcing coronavirus vaccine requirements for workers. Anyone found in violation of the order will be subject to a fine, and this comes after President Biden announced last month that all companies with 100 or more employees will need to mandate vaccinations. Meanwhile, President Biden is set to hold a virtual meeting with G20 leaders on the situation in Afghanistan later on today. So Zeke Miller is on the phone with us to discuss all of this. He's a White House reporter for the Associated Press and CBS News political contributor. Zeke, thanks for getting up early for us. So listen, let's talk about this meeting that the president's going to be having with these G20 leaders. Will the president be what will he be discussing during this virtual meeting, and who's going to be in attendance?
Well, thanks for having me. We're about 45 days now since the U.S. formally pulled the last troops out of Afghanistan, and that's the main focus of this meeting. And this comes a couple of weeks ahead of the meeting of G20 presidents scheduled for Rome at the end of the month, where a whole slew of other issues are on the docket. But this is sort of a dedicated meeting that the White House says is going to be focused more on Afghanistan. And that will mean everything from what to do about the Taliban, which now controls Afghanistan, whether to recognize their government, what sort of foreign aid just to continue to supply to Afghanistan, because the people of Afghanistan desperately need foreign assistance, food, health supplies, or UN experts warn of massive famine in that country. Separately, there's also what to do about Western citizens who are still trapped in Afghanistan and the ongoing efforts to get them out. So there's a lot on the docket as the president meets with some of these developed nations, the world's wealthiest nations, in a virtual setting today.
All right, so let's talk about what's happening in Texas. Yesterday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order banning any entity in the state from enforcing a vaccine mandate. We had said employees, but it's not just employees. A concert hall that maybe only wants people to come see a show if they're vaccinated and asks you to bring proof of vaccination, that can't happen in Texas either. So it's employees, it's also customers. Have we heard anything from the White House? Because this stands in direct contrast with the mandate that the president said he was going to issue. He hasn't actually kind of filed the paperwork yet, but it's definitely his intent. So have we heard anything?
We haven't seen an initial response from the White House. I would expect we would get one in the next couple of hours here. Every time there have been sorts of efforts to push back on vaccine mandates, like in Texas, like in Florida in particular, over the last several weeks and months, we've seen the Biden administration speak out pretty forcefully, and when it came to schools that were trying to, when it came to mask mandates, not vaccine mandates, but mask mandates, we saw the federal government essentially reimbursing school districts in Florida that were losing money in that state. So I would expect a pretty forceful response, potentially the legal challenge from the federal government being filed in the next couple of days. And on that employer side mandate that we're expecting from the Department of Labor, officials say that should be kicking in the next couple of weeks. That said, the White House at the same time is also gritting for a legal challenge to that. So this may all just end up in the courts. And the challenge, for people in Texas will be sort of who do you follow, who do you listen to, and what do you do in the interim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So just to sort of clarify and remind people what the president said, he said that he wanted a mandate for employers with 100 or more employees to require vaccinations or make unvaccinated workers show a negative test once a week. And we all heard him announce that. It was supposed to be done through OSHA, but then nothing was actually filed. So we've all been sort of sitting and wondering when it was going to actually be implemented. So you say that should be happening soon. So let me ask you about something else. A new report from the nonprofit First Street Foundation finds that almost a quarter of the nation's roads and critical infrastructure are at risk of becoming overcome by climate change, exacerbated by flooding. So where is Congress in trying to get this infrastructure bill passed? It seems like by the time they pass it, we're going to need another infrastructure bill.
Yeah, I mean, this is, infrastructure has been this unifying bipartisan, white whale in Washington for the last, 15, 20 years. Everyone in both parties acknowledges it needs to get done, and we are, the closest we've been towards seeing a massive amount of infrastructure spending being signed into law than we have been in any time over that time period. That said, it's all being held up right now over sort of an intra-Democratic Party dispute over the fate of that broader social spending bill that President Biden also wants to have passed this year. There's a sort of a soft deadline at the end of the month when a bunch of transportation funding expires. Congress can always sort of kick the can on that deadline. But the next couple of weeks are pretty critical to, will that investment get made, or will it get caught up in Washington gridlock, once again the same way it has been for really more than a decade now.
And what about that massive social spending package?
Democrats have made clear, and the president has said, the politics of the Democratic caucus in Congress right now suggests that the two will move in tandem. So for the president to get the infrastructure package, which the American people want, he's going to need the other one too. And that means that they've got a lot of work ahead of them in negotiation over the next couple of weeks.
All right, Zeke Miller, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. All things the White House. Thanks.
Thanks.